So you're on video. Hi. Hi. How are you?
To everyone who saw her running beside the road, pushing a pushchair, a stroller, Marie Leautey looked like a mum out for a quick run with her child. If they glanced inside, they wouldn't have seen an infant, but all the belongings Marie needed to run around the world.
Where are we?
Cristo Redentor, 3,870 meter altitude, at the border between Chile and Argentina, up in the mountains.
Lootie, as she is known to the running community, is the fastest woman to run around this planet, and she did so through the pandemic. She averaged just over 40 kilometers a day. Born in France, she's only the second woman to run the world, the first being Englishwoman Rosie Swale Pope, who wrote the foreword to Loutie's excellent new account of her adventure. The book, Loutie's World Run, was published mid-July, and most of the PR effort is going into the American market. I've read an advanced copy, it is very good, and as a result, I hope you'll soon see a lot of Lootie at running events and in magazines in the UK. She has a great story to tell. I managed to catch some of it on our conversation over Zoom from her current base in Greece.
I found the writing or anything that happened after the run, for that matter, a lot more challenging than the run itself. The run itself was always easy for me, and I really mean it. It was never challenging. It was an adventure. It was fantastic, but it was not. I never thought to myself, oh, this is too difficult, let's give up or something. It never crossed my mind. Whereas it is true that with the writing, suddenly you have a big load on your shoulder. You're like, I've got to give this journey justice. I've got to do it justice, sorry. And this is a very big pressure, because if I fail at that, that means I haven't managed to give my journey a meaningful purpose. I haven't managed to transmit. I haven't managed to share with others, and that would be a major failure. So the pressure and the challenge was more with anything happening after the run.
Raconte Alexis Jacquet. Elle se définit comme une sportive du dimanche.
The pandemic turned Europe into a maze.
When the World Run started, it started on the westernmost point of the European continent, which happens to be just on the coast of Lisbon, Cabo da Roca. My plan was very simple: 6 or 7 months of running, following the Mediterranean coast, the coast of Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, and further down Croatia, and then into Greece, and then into Istanbul. That would have been literally 7,000 kilometers running, maybe 6 months and a half, something like that. That's what I was looking at. And then, of course, as I'm reaching Italy, I'm 3 months into my World Run, which is very little. You know, you're still very uncertain about how things are doing. And then I found myself in Pisa, Italy, on 16th of March, 2020, which is when Italy declares a national lockdown. And it's the first country in the world to do so. So I'm basically thrown out of the country.
Her route has been validated, but she ended up with possibly the most complex GPS and satellite track of any world adventurer.
I don't know where to go, so my parents offered me to stay in Paris, where they stay. And I found myself in Paris wondering, well, hold on, all the other countries are still open. I may as well restart from any point and keep going. But as I was devising this plan, every other country in Europe gets into lockdown. So I'm stuck in Paris now, and the challenge is you are not allowed to go out for more than 1 hour a day within 1 kilometer of your place of living. And I'm like, I don't know how long this is going to go for, but I need to be able to maintain my running check, which was running a marathon a day, 42 kilometers a day. So very quickly, I offered my services, because I was also very lost. I didn't know what to do with my 24 hours a day of doing nothing, or 23 hours rather. So I offered my help to some benevolent association, and I ended up delivering food, meals in the street of Paris for the homeless. And I've got a special authorization to be able to move with whatever means of transport I want. Of course, I choose running, and I end up running 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day in the street of Paris, absolutely free, delivering meals to the people who live in the streets. And that was both a period of absolute freedom for me, great achievement, and joy, which is curious because it was a very dark time for humanity. But I found that little bit of being able to contribute and, doing myself and others a favor, I guess.
Leautey's return to running in Europe proved equally complex when a second lockdown closed some countries but not others. She was guided by the rules of the World Runners Association.
So from the moment I launched into my wild run, I sent them my letter of intention. I asked them to confirm that my route, my planned route, was in accordance with their rules. They validated it. And I gave them my satellite beacon access so they could verify that where I was running every day, that it corresponded to my GPS thing. So I was very transparent with them from the get-go. And when COVID hit, every decision I made sure it was validated, ratified by them. For instance, the choice to start back from any point I've already passed to try another route around where countries were closed in Europe. They validated all of that, and they said to me, as long as there is a continuous line across the continent, doesn't matter how many dead ends you meet because you can't go further, just make sure it's continuous. But after a year and a half of running in Europe, I had pretty much crossed every single country. Every route there was to run, I've run it.
Europe was behind her, and her eastward route should have taken her to Australia, but it was completely closed. So again, she needed permission from the World Runners Association to tackle Oceania later and run the United States first.
As it turned out, it would take 2 more years for Australia to reopen their borders. So they consulted the whole WRA, and they all agreed that I should be able to bypass the continents that were closed and continue my running on other continents, keeping as much as I can the direction. So yes, it was important for me to conform to the rules because I wanted this run to be ratified ultimately.
I recorded an audio podcast, episode 46, with Lootie as she was about to start her USA crossing. All of this lay before her, and she knew it would be difficult.
How are you feeling? You have a lot of fans out here in central Washington. What is that? What is that?
It's bear spray.
Where did you get that?
Forrest, would you believe it? Gave me his bear spray because he doesn't need it anymore. And he gave it to me for free. Look at that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Hopefully you won't need it now that you have it.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's good to have it. So you're running downhill.
Easy.
How do you feel?
Free.
There's some wind turbines up there. They start turning at 9 miles per hour. You'll have to do the conversion. And usually there's a tailwind here, but there happens to be a headwind going down the hill.
Yeah, but it's nice. It's refreshing.
Which makes it a little bit cooler. I don't know. Everything's looking pretty smooth to me.
When I'm about to start the US, the main challenge is that it's not, the place I chose to run was not very densely populated, unlike Europe, where you can easily find a village, a place of life every 40 kilometers or so. When I leave Seattle, I've got in my sight maybe Spokane, which is like 500 or so kilometers away. And after that, to reach the next big town, Minneapolis, I've got 3,500 kilometers of running through not much, which is Montana, beautiful, North Dakota, beautiful, but low, very low density. That means I'm going to have to be camping a lot. It can be quite a hostile territory in terms of, there are bears for a start and wildcats. It's also July, August, and it's a heat dome, so there is a lot of wildfires around. And I had a few brushes with them, which was very scary. So I'm considering that. And this is basically the thing I'm more anxious about. Not deeply anxious, but I know that it's going to have to be something I'm very aware about. And also, I wonder how I will be perceived running alone with my buggy because, I have to say, to carry my equipment, I was not carrying a rucksack. I was pushing it in a buggy in front of me. So I looked very much like a mom going for a run with a baby. So I was just wondering, how will people see me? How will I blend in with the environment? And as it turned out, these months of crossing through the vast underbelly of America were some of the most incredible in terms of meeting people, of being welcome, of having people offering me to stay at their place or offering me a meal or a beer. And I understood later that, or as I went, that when I run in places where I stand out because I am strange thing in the landscape, that's where I elicit the most empathic reaction from people. They care about me. They're asking me if I have enough to drink. It's hot. If I have enough to eat, do I need any help? And they look out for me as well. Some people were like, "Oh yeah, my friend blah blah told me yesterday that they saw you on the road. They told me to keep an eye out for you." I felt extremely looked after. And having said that, it was a bit ambivalent for me because these were very much Trump territories, countries and that voted for Trump more than 80, 90% in some cases. And I was wondering if it would affect how they saw me, a foreign woman alone in their homeland or something. But actually, it turns out, and I understood that people individually are very good, most of them. And it's people are as a group, which tend to be a problem. But during my journey, I was only meeting people, individuals. And I always noticed how when they realized I was doing a world run, it elicited the best in them. And I got only the best of these people. So it was a wonderful thing to discover.
That is fantastic to hear, because you became quite famous in America in the sense that the local news would catch up with you and that would follow you state to state as well, didn't you? And you ending up with a pretty massive group run, I seem to remember.
Well, it was a bit like an analogy with the movie Forrest Gump. He starts alone and there is a group of followers behind him. But yeah, I was pretty amazed, especially through Montana and North Dakota, because it turns out that when you go back to more urban environments, you are invisible again because you blend in and you don't stand out. But throughout these months of crossing, I mean, there were countless moments where usually you reach a town and what there is in the town is a motel, a saloon, a gas station, and a grocery store. Usually that's all there is.
A diner?
And sometimes... well, that's the saloon, really.
Oh, I see. Okay. I was in California, so when we hit the town, it was always a diner. Yeah.
No, over there it's a saloon, I'm afraid. So it has happened to me countless times that I would reach the saloon and somebody would say, "Oh, we've been expecting you." And I'm like, "Oh, what? What do you mean?" "Oh, yeah, my friend was at a saloon in Haisham or whatever, told me you would be hitting this town today, so we figured out you'd come here. And by the way, he's paid your meal as well, so whatever you want, and we're paying your drinks." When you've been running in the heat wave for a marathon and just setting camp somewhere you don't know, for England, it feels so incredible that you realize that it's the power of what I was doing. I attribute it to the power of the world run. When you say, if it was not a run, if I was walking, I guess it would have been the same. You are going around the world. It has something very magical. And although not everybody would want to do it or would think they are capable of doing it, they all relate to the dream. And I think it makes them very close to you. They feel they are very close and connected to you. And hence what happens. That's how I explain it.
The numbers are astonishing. 28,249 kilometers run on 697 days. 128 rest days, that's one a week, averaging 40.5 kilometers a day at 9.2 kilometers an hour. And 0 injuries. Loutey's preparation was to seek advice from a physiotherapist who did not specialize in running.
Well, I had something very clear in my mind, is that when I chose to embark on this journey of running around the world, it is typically what you call out of the box idea. It couldn't be more out of the box. Only 6 people in the world have attempted it. And it struck me that if I was following the same principles or guidance that most runners, if not all, follow, then I will get the same results that they are getting. And when you look into the statistics, I'm talking about, let's say, one person who prepares 1 marathon in 1 year. Between 50 and 70% of runners, of these specific runners, will get injured either during their preparation, during the run itself, or after the run. And I thought, so if I follow the science, if I can call it this way, that these people are following, then I don't have a chance of running 700 marathons. I will be injured very quickly, and then my dream will become a dream again. So I thought, okay, it's to me then. I started to going back to anatomy charts, understanding how everything works in my body, how the food amortizes the load and stabilizes and then propulses you. What is the food made of? The bones, the tendons, the ligaments, the muscles, how it connects to the ankle, to the lower leg, to the knee, and everything. I spent 2 years of my preparation just trying to understand the biomechanics. And then it appeared pretty quickly that the way I should be running should be not with a heel attack, which is what everybody in the world of running is telling you should do. That's why they are selling you shoes that have got a big absorbing, cushioning heel. It's because they tell you that's how you should be landing. It appeared to me I should be landing on the front of on the ball of the foot. And that's what the ball of the foot is there, is actually to start the amortization, the cushioning process when you're landing, to absorb the so that you don't get injured. So in the end, I ended up, I was seeing a physio every month, and I chose him because he was not specialized in running, because I knew that if I'd get the physio that was the running specialist, he would tell me straight away that it is not possible to run a marathon a day for 2 years or 3 years and not having any doctor or physio or whatever to follow me, as I was doing it, and not getting injured. I thought, because he knows his science, he knows that it's impossible. I wanted to have somebody who didn't have any preconceived ideas about it, and therefore would be more open-minded to think that it would be possible. And that's how I chose this guy to help me reprogram the way I learned and to help me really understanding my body, which is a big work of proprioception. So I was able to understand what my body was doing without actually seeing it.
And you didn't need to do any specialist recovery at the end of every day. I thought you'd be foam rollering and stuff,
No, I didn't have any of this, but I had an instinct and that it would be the case. I had read all the books from my predecessors, the 6 who have run before me, and they didn't have such routines as well of, massages and all that. And actually, it makes sense that when you are doing it on a daily basis, your body gets used to it. It's almost like I didn't feel even heavy legs when I started my runs every morning. It becomes so natural when you do it at this level. And also, we're saying that I was not in my red zone every day. I was not running my best marathon every day. I was running a comfortable, easy marathon every day. To give you an idea, before the World Run, my marathon time was about 3 hours 20. During my World Run, all my marathons were done in about 4 hours and a half, which is not a bad time, I agree, but it is far away from me pushing myself to try and get the best performance out of my body. So being in this comfortable zone as well helped me a lot. Having time and having the space to understand my body, to catch all the signals, if there were any, that something wasn't right, and to be able to address it. And to me, that was key.
Crossing South America, Lootie had company, her good friend, now partner, James.
Tsiporaki.
He drove a camper van and would cycle alongside for certain stretches, so there's more video.
Where are we at the altitude?
We are nearly 3,500 meters.
It is more than spectacular. Sometimes people ask me what is my best memory or best time of the world run, and invariably, automatically, my mind goes to the Andes. And there is something when you are crossing this Cordillera that is just mind-blowing. You know, I started running from south of Chile in Patagonia. I went up the coast, heading north towards Valparaiso, and then I'm at sea level. And within 4 or 5 days, I find myself at 4,000 meters of altitude, deep into this gray Cordillera, and crossing the border between Chile and Argentina. And there is this amazing feeling that takes hold of me as I'm there in the middle of nowhere, thinking if it wasn't for this crazy idea I had one day that I would go running around the world, I would never find myself here. Nobody finds themselves here. There is only a mountain trail leading to it that nobody runs. Some people, I'm not sure how many, but clearly not many, may try it by mountain bike, but I've seen nobody once I was there. It's just such a place that you would never get to, especially on foot. If you're crossing a continent, you would take a plane or you would go by car, but definitely not on foot. And being there at 4,000 meters with the exhilaration of altitude as well, and looking out, I could see the summits of the Aconcagua, you know, this 7,000 plus summit. And it was just so incredible, such a beautiful remote place. And I felt with my crazy dream, I belonged there. It was fine for me to be there, but it was so beautiful. It was, you may say, it must have been very tough. It must have been, you know, there are so many things going through my mind as I'm running up there that it being tough is not the first thought. I thought, okay, if it's too difficult for me, I may take a few walking steps and then I resume slowly jogging up. But you just have to look around and your mind transports you literally. It was South America in general was such a beautiful crossing. Yes.
We have this video because James is with you at this stage. Now, just explain to me how, I know he wasn't running with you. He had a bike and then he'd be sometimes with you, sometimes you'd be by yourself, but thank you to him for the video. How did having him alongside change the nature of the big event, as it were, the world run?
It did change it in many ways. By the time James joined me, I had already been running 21,000 kilometers completely alone for 2 years. So I had these 2 years of adventure behind me already. And I was very aware that although I was documenting it with my blog, my pictures, everything on a daily basis, somehow the memories of what it was like to be in this adventure, to live the day by day, were only just with me, really, and occasionally the people I meet and the connections I make. So when James offered to join the journey, when we started discussing it, the discussion started because I was going to cross the Andes, and I thought I would rather run at 4,000 meters of altitude without my stroller, because it was 30 kilos I was pushing. So you can imagine if I had to push it up the slopes of the mountain.
And very rough roads, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what started as a discussion on how to help me on logistics get through this difficult mountain crossing became something different when I thought about how much richer the experience could be, but I had no certainty if I was with someone else and somebody who could share this with me. Meaning also in the post-World Run era, I would have somebody whom to speak to who could understand. It would be far less isolating, although I never felt really isolated when I was on my own, but it is true that I was still on my own living through that. So to me, it was a challenge accepting him on board because I had very well oiled routine of how I was doing things, and somehow having someone might disturb it. But I thought it would be worth it. And it has other advantages. When I'm on my own, I'm dependent on finding a road that goes from one place to another where I can find food and water and all these things. And if I have to camp, because there is nothing, I have to minimize the nights of camping because I'm carrying my water. If I'm drinking 6 liters of water a day, that's 6 additional kilos. So you could see that my logistics was very constrained by the nature of running a load and being self-sufficient. Suddenly when James joins me, I don't have this constraint anymore. That means I'm free to run off-road wherever I want in the most beautiful nature, not having to worry about joining the next village or whatever, because at my finish point, he's waiting for me with his bicycle or with the minivan he was driving. And we could drive to town and refuel our supplies. And then on the next morning, he would drive me back to the exact point I had stopped the day before. So in a way, it allowed me a lot more freedom, a lot more beautiful runs in nature. And that was a great addition to the world run. It transformed my running.
There is one thing I wasn't entirely clear about in your book, and it might have been deliberate, so feel free not to answer that. But were you a couple going into this? And were you a couple coming out of it? Because I wasn't sure whether he was just kind of a friend who was there with you, or whether, you were a pair.
Well, going into the world run, we were friends. We had known each other for about 15 years, but we were part of a group of friends. So we were not intimate in any way. For instance, I had never been alone having a coffee with him, for instance. We would see each other in groups. Each other for such a long time already. I had a sense of what kind of person he was. He was a good man, and he was very outdoorsy, and he helped a lot of people cycle around places. So I knew he was for the job, so to speak. But what I didn't expect. Yes, out of the world run, and to that day, and I hope a lot more. We are a couple, yeah.
This was Loutey's route across South America, the third of 4 continents on her run. Reaching Buenos Aires, she received an amazing welcome.
So this is Marie's final run. This is the finish point. Chile, Argentina, and finish.
I was scheduled to arrive in Buenos Aires on 8th of March, which is International Women's Day, of course. And the ambassadress, who is a woman, was organizing some events around women in sport. So it could have fitted the situation better.
With the French school.
And there are literally hundreds of students forming a welcome arch or something, and following me for loops inside the garden, like 1 kilometer loops or something, and cheering me on. And then when I arrive in the courtyard of the school, this hundred of students clapping, and they have these big signs. I was at 28,300 kilometers, but seeing it on a sign,
wow.
It hit home to me. I was like, geez, that's how much I've run. Because, I'm not saying to myself, oh, you run so much today or something. So there was this, and then I spent the whole afternoon talking with students, and to see in their eyes and in their reactions and in their questions what this meant to them. What for me was, I often refer to it as a crazy dream. For them, it was a lot more, and they had so many questions about what it feels like to run in different countries, meeting different people, and I could see their curiosity to the world, which is what feeds me on a daily basis. It was just beautiful, and I'm still in touch with some of them, and it's now more than 3 years after meeting them. Sometimes I get a message, and it's just, they say, we haven't forgotten about your arrival and what it means. I hope one day I get to achieve my dream as well. And it's just incredible to see that you're touching, in a way, these people.
Even at this stage, with only 1 continent to go, there was little media interest in her world run. That would come later. Throughout, Lootie was running for the charity Women for Women International. It helps female survivors of war rebuild their lives.
It's a cause that doesn't attract big media, big attention, because it's something, and that's why it was so important for me to give them my voice and to give them my fundraising effort. Because if I fight for a big cause that everybody knows about, my voice will be lost and my effort will be lost as a drop in the ocean of all the people who already contribute. But if I fight for them, I know that it will be important to them. So that's how I chose to support them. And I'm very glad because they are doing an amazing job at the moment. Unfortunately, they have a lot of jobs to do.
Despite the size of Australia, the finish line was now in sight. After 2.5 years, Lootie had about 2 months of running ahead of her, again with James's support.
And I didn't have the same fear as entering North America, because North America I was on my own, so I had to camp alone with the bears or whatever.
Right.
Here James was driving the motorhome, so he was driving it, as you guessed, 42 kilometers every day from point to point. So when I finished, there will be the motorhome waiting there. So that's a place where we could be safe at night, where we could do our little barbecue in the evening when we're out of town, which was many, many, many days.
I will take a break at the van, and then you can drive it another 10 kilometers. Is that okay?
You see what my life is like.
It was red, as the pictures and video shows. The earth is red there. That's how it is. My skin was covered in it. My shoes were in red mud. And the contrasts there are beautiful. I don't know why I always think the colors are much brighter in Australia. The sky is a bright blue, unobstructed. You've got all these different kind of shrubs and different kind of eucalyptus trees that are of a very light green, gray color. And then you've got this vibrant red earth. And yes, by having James with me allowed me again to run off-road. Crossing from Perth to Sydney, like from side to side of Australia, you're crossing this 1,200 kilometers of desert called the Nullarbor. And there is nothing in there except like what they call a roadhouse every 200 kilometers. But there is just one road. What we found out quickly is that by the side of the road, there is a pipeline running, because a big problem in the desert is the access to water. And so for a long time, I had been able to follow the pipeline, which took me off the road on little trails, parallel to the road, but not having to deal with traffic. And even after the pipeline ended, James was always scouting in front of me, like by the side of the road, to try to find a path where I could run and not be on that highway. You see kangaroos bouncing in the background, and then you set camp and you're visited by a flock of emus, just looking at you as if they are in the zoo and they are seeing something peculiar. It's just amazing. There is no fear. It's just, I didn't feel fear. I just felt amazement all the time. It was beautiful.
Lootie's Australian crossing ended in Sydney. She gradually gathered runners and supporters as she passed through the city. This wasn't quite the end. The rules required Lootie to pass through 2 antipodal points, opposite sides of the world, in her case near Seville in Spain and Auckland in New Zealand. Surprisingly, her record-setting run received relatively little media attention.
Before embarking on this run, I had been a nomad all my life. Like, I left France when I was 20. So I was not really part of a group of runners, social groups in France. So I didn't have this support. Also, I didn't start my world run in France, nor did I finish it in France. So it felt, for not only for the people, but for the media as well, that it was not really, it was none of their business to report on it in a way.
Était sur son chemin pour connaître ses motivations et ses impressions.
Déjà 9700 km que Marie court au rythme d'un marathon chaque jour.
When I finally concluded the world run, for one day, all the newspapers reported about me, either via a short article or via a 2 minutes, in the news.
And what surprised me as a journalist is the lack of attention from any of the specialist running or adventure media, magazines or podcasts.
What about a woman who is running 700 marathons and doesn't get injured and discovers the world? Isn't that interesting for you? I was too much under the radar. They didn't know who I was. Nobody had ever heard of me. I had never placed in any running events before that, so I had no resume to show in the world of sport.
But you see, that's exactly the story. That's what got to me. That's exactly what appealed to me. You know that, I know that. Anyway, as you know, we've tried I've tried approaching him, telling them Hey, you're missing a story here. So we'll see what comes of it. Marie still runs occasionally, but has kicked the marathon a day habit. Her excellent book, Lootie's World Run, has just been released, is receiving great reviews, and there's a link to it on Amazon in the show notes and video description. If you'd like to watch another great adventurer tell of their great adventure, check out this one. I'm Simon Willis. Thanks for listening and for watching. Goodbye.